Good morning. Thank you all for joining us on this gorgeous Sunday evening or morning. um, anyway, I'm very happy to have like a varied panel for divinations. There's Paul. Paul, where are you? Hello, Paul. Your name, I will begin introducing Paul and John and the Vedic contingent. And can I please request everybody else to stop their video, please? People who are not on the panel, that will really help. And please mute yourselves. That will be a huge blessing. Thank you. And so over to Paul. Now, Paul, you have been involved with BAVA, which is the British Association of Vedic Astrology, for the past almost 2 decades, or even more than 2 decades.
No. I first went in, I started Jyotish in 2005, doing the BAVA courses through Gordon Brennan, originally online.
Yeah.
And I first attended BAVA, I think, in 2006.
Yeah.
And because that's where I think I met Camilla there. And Camilla Sutton, who I think is listening, I'm not sure. And also Pandit Sanjay Rath was speaking there. He was actually speaking on the Drakana chart, so I've still got the notes. So it was quite an influential conference in 2006. So, and of course, I've gone on to do a lot of work with both Camilla and it was taken me to India several times, and that's been a life-changing experience.
Right. And you've also done Gemini Sutras. You also done a Gemini Sutras program with Steve Hubble, right? Steve Hubble, for those who don't know, is one of the first scholars of Gemini scholars of Sanjay Rath's program, of the Gemini Scholar Program. So yes, and so Paul often contributes for even the Western Astrological conferences. So welcome, Paul. And now over to you, John. Your name is Hari. Is that like an adopted name?
Hari, I was given the name by my spiritual teacher.
Okay. Beautiful. So, and you are based in Dublin, and you have been like a psychotherapist, the Jungian analyst, and you even, I think, were influenced by Liz, and very early on, almost 30 years ago, right?
Absolutely. Liz and Howard Susportus.
Yes. Did you ever meet them or no?
No, I really, kind of Dublin is was a bit of a backwater back in the 90s when I was a major fan and studying Jungian psychology.
Right.
But I read all their books, and I absolutely was enthralled by their work.
Okay. And since then, you've gone to you're enrolled into the Gemini program as well as with Steve Hubble, and as well as you did the PJC with Sanjay, but you've kind of need to finish off give some more finishing touches to the program.
Well, I'm a lifetime student of astrology and Jyotish, so it just never ends. Probably another 200 or 300 lifetimes I might be that good. But
interestingly, that you've got a beautiful practice going in Ireland, and I don't know that many Vedic astrologers. I know Alex in Israel may be aware, we have a very good colleague, a great colleague of ours, Margaret Gray, but she does psychological astrology, Western astrology. So it's lovely to have you on board. And then Alex, we begin with you. Hi, darling.
Hi, I got to apologize for my green screen getting knocked around by the fan in my office. Sorry about that. So I had to
not at all. Now, Alex is a very dear friend of mine, and she's been involved in the Krishnamurti conferences for almost 4 years now, or is it 5 years?
5 years now.
5 years now. She's also on the board of ISAR or ISAR, however you say it. And she's heavily into research. She's published many books on astrology and teenagers. She's been a school teacher for a very, very long time. And ironically, she's American, but she's moved to Britain, I think 30 years ago, I think, right?
That's right. I was born in Port Huron, Michigan. And I've lived in England since 1990. And I lived a couple years in Dublin. Yeah, I got involved with Krishnamurti Institute of Astrology after many years of trying to get my foot in the door with British astrology.
Fabulous. And now Israel, thank you, Alex. And it's great to have you on board. And by the way, Alex's specialty is Saturn, Jupiter, cycles, and she maps it to the growth cycles of children and teenagers. So welcome aboard, Alex. And Israel. Israel has been with the Astrology Lodge of London ever since I remember. He was my colleague. He was my colleague, and we were together at the Western Psychological Astrology course, diploma course with Liz Green. And so he's at the moment vice president of the Lodge of London. So please give him a warm welcome. And again, he has been extremely busy in the past few months. You can't get hold of Israel. And Nathan, where are you? Hi, Nathan. Hello. His formerly Theo NAicker, as you can see. But
hello. I've just got my video off because of the.
Okay. So Theo's actual name is Theo NAicker, but I think he has been kind of conferred with another name, Nathan. So by Guruji, by Pandit Sanjay Rath. So get his Scorpio side activated, which is his Atmakaraka. So he's enrolled in a lot of the courses, as I am, with Pandit Sanjay Rath. We are doing the Mantra Shastra program, the Gemini Sutras Scholar program, as well as the PJC. So yes, he is originally a petroleum engineer. So he used to be in the UK a few years ago, which is when I met him. So please give him a warm welcome. Now, let's begin. So who's going first? We are going to be talking about the Saturn Jupiter cycle. I think in Makar, in the sign of Capricorn, which is what it's called Makar in Sanskrit, and it's his home sign and debility sign for Jupiter. So let's start. Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to just say a few words.
Yeah, go on.
Not by any means an expert on Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions, but when I've listened to people talking about Jupiter-Saturn, it's clear that there is a cycle. So intrinsically, we're talking about cycles, and the tattwa of the sign, the element is significant. So Jupiter and Saturn in Capricorn obviously is about structure and this type of thing based on Saturn. Saturn limits things, Jupiter expands. So in my mind, we're seeing some sort of innate tension between these planets. That's how I perceive them. In a natal chart, there can be can present difficulties to some respect. If we're talking about a mundane chart, then as we know, we can look back to something like 60 years ago, when Jupiter and Saturn were last in Capricorn, and we can see these sorts of events that were taking place there and compare them to what's happening now. Now, Jupiter's in a sign for 1 year, Saturn for 2.5 years. But nevertheless, it seems that the consequences of this conjunction manifest over a 20-year period, say, for society and a country. So it's quite a profound conjunction. when we look at around about 1961, when they were last conjunct in Capricorn, an Earth sign, Prithvi Tattva, that 60s decade was really an era of profound change across the world, certainly in the UK, but worldwide. Obviously, it brought in a greater focus on women's issues, ethnic minority issues. There was the culture change. It brought in all the the arts changed and everything, and really the values of society, certainly British society, changed tremendously. There was less opprobrium attached to, let's say, gay relationships and so on. So it was quite a profound change that changed the structures of society and changed the values of society. There was also, it's quite interesting that there was conflict on the Indian-Chinese border. And of course, that's flared up again recently. So we've seen the same sorts of things that have occurred in 1961 seem to be occurring now. Now, obviously, we've had this COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, Pandit Sanjay Rath has spoken, he has written articles on this, the curse of Jupiter, etc., which are very interesting. My view on the pandemic is that it's a catalyst for change that's going to restructure society. And, we have seen this, it's taking place now. It's brought in economic consequences that have are really quite profound. About a week ago, I went into my nearest city, which is Leeds, and had a walk around for the first time in months, and it was shocking to see how many businesses had closed down, and restaurants and everything that were once thriving have now gone into liquidation. And sadly, Israel, I won't be taking you to the Red Hot Buffet anymore. Because it's no longer exists.
It no longer exists.
It's gone the way of all flesh, and it's gone into liquidation. Yeah. I think somebody might buy it by the looks of it, but so we'll have to see. But all those restaurants in that area, it's terrible. They've all closed down. So, there is a restructuring of certainly in the business world taking place, and in the UK, there's a lot of people, out of work or about to be thrown out of work. So we're seeing this restructuring of society, and where that's going to take us, it's interesting to speculate. But to me, the pandemic was the catalyst, and the Jupiter-Saturn, they were together. They're not conjunct at the moment. Shortly. Is causing this restructuring of society that's going to affect us all for the next 20 years.
Yeah. Well, I've said for years, we need to think about the way we educate our children, and the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in the tropical sign of Aquarius. I've been saying for years, we need to change the way we teach our children. I didn't mean to bring a plague down on us, because you're absolutely right. It's causing massive changes. Teachers have had to go online, and we've had to change our curriculum, and it's everything's changing. And you talk about restaurants, but a lot of restaurants now are simply online. Our delivery people are suddenly, a job that we value.
Can I say something? Both of you are referring to restaurants, and it's interesting because I know Guruji Sanjay Rath often mentions that forms the Saturn Jupiter conjunction forms what is called the Brahma Yoga. And the Brahma Yoga often you look at, and in Makar, the sign of Capricorn, which is what it is sidereally, Alex, and is a really, it's kind of a very earth sign. So if we look at even from the Western counterpart, when we look at Johannes Kepler and his research on the great cycles, the great conjunctions, we find that this epicycle, it belongs to, in the sign earth sign of Capricorn, belongs to a larger cycle. And because it is an earth sign, everything regarding our body, the material existence, everything, it will be up in question. How we relate with our body and nutrition, diet, lifestyle, all of that will be under review. And he often says that when there is a conjunction, you have to see the opposite side for the Jupiter Saturn, for this Brahma Yoga, which is Cancer. And then we suddenly are looking at water, food, what we ingest in ourselves. So suddenly all this is a huge focus. Yeah, absolutely. It's the moon. And so
the moon is character for restaurants. So it's the restaurants have taken a particular hit, but it is broader than that. But
totally. I think we will all, because there have been client consultations where people are restaurant owners and chefs. They're asking me how they're going to survive.
They got to cook from their own kitchen.
Absolutely,
in the context of the business world and like I think it's very important what you're saying, Sonal, about the fact that this conjunction in sidereal astrology, in Jyotish, like I tend to focus on classical Jyotish, so we don't include the outer planets, which are very much part of the Western tradition now.
Yeah.
But so I tend to view, Saturn and Jupiter as representing, when their relationship to each other is representing the kind of growth in collective consciousness trends.
Yeah.
And
the last time, sorry,
but just getting back to the point about business, I think a very significant thing that's happening now and that we see in the next 20 years before the next Saturn-Jupiter conjunction is the power of corporations, big business on the planet.
Yeah,
that's going to take over.
That's Makar. Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Israel, do you have anything to say about this?
Yeah, what I would like to just add to what you've all been saying, I totally agree. That is, we are in a very interesting time. But to look at also the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction cycles as kind of like when we look at sort of like the new moon, the first quarter, the full moon period, and the last quarter. So this Jupiter conjunction that's coming up for us, we're at the point where it's almost like it's in the balsamic stage, sort of like the last waning phase. So this is why I strongly feel like this year is this is sort of like a clearing ground for that new energy. And when we look at both planets, we know Saturn, obviously, he tends to limit and constrict in some way, because Saturn's purpose is essentially, whether it's on an individual or collective level, is to provide some foundational groundwork on which we can build on. Whereas Jupiter can allow us to, through some kind of knowledge and wisdom, to be able to expand that. So although on one level, sometimes Jupiter-Saturn can seem a bit counterproductive, as a matter of fact, when those two archetype energies are utilized in a very effective way, they are extremely very, very powerful. So what we're witnessing now, the whole shutdown thing, which is a real Saturn word. I mean, a lot of these words that we're hearing in society today, shutdown, lockdown, social distancing, the distance, all these, the barrier stuff, we're witnessing, again, Saturn, even with the whole, Paul mentioned there earlier on about, gender equalities and racial, ethnic minorities 60 years ago. And again, we're seeing elements of that with the whole situation that happened in America with the killing of George Floyd. And again, it was interesting because the mantra became this, I can't breathe, which is a Saturn thing, this
value.
The symbol of this policeman having his knee on this gentleman's neck, killing him, is really constricting. It's Saturn is constricting the breath. So we're seeing this Saturn thing, having to wear masks. This is a real Saturnian thing. So I feel this is necessary. We're at a very pivotal time where you know, it's like the energy of Saturn is trying to say, okay, slow down, guys, lock all this down, shut the companies, the shops for now, just to take a back step. And Jupiter is the one that's allowing it to actually spread. And also even the virus diseases we know are, you know, Saturn is the, if you want to say, the character for illnesses and diseases, and Jupiter's the one who's letting that spread. So Saturn's the disease, Jupiter, Guru, is the spreading of that disease. So we're at a time now where it's just about clearing up all this muck. So when that conjunction really takes place on 21st of December this year, that will be the catalyst for the new beginning.
And I think it's also interesting because both planets are currently retrograde.
Yes.
So, you know, everything's in a kind of holding, waiting mode at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's what we're feeling.
Yeah. And I suppose on one level, the retrogrades, one of the symbolic ways I view it is that it's actually giving humanity's consciousness to kind of just go back and reflect over what we've been doing for the last 20 years and how we've been treating one another, how we've been treating the planet, how we've been treating our bodies. And it's like saying, look, have a good think about this, have a good reflection about this. So
I mean, and you mentioned Mr. Floyd. I mean, think about the reaction to that, the public reaction to that.
Yeah.
You know, like it's people were angry, but they were expressing what they're thinking. I mean, people are saying, you know, this is not the way we want to live our lives. This is not, we're human beings.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And Nathan, I mean, where's Nathan?
I'm here. I've just got the video off because, you know, India.
Yeah. That's fine. But you may be well aware that Sanjay always says that the sign of Capricorn is like Kali's favorite sign, and it's the cemetery.
My favorite person.
Yeah,
so
dead body.
Basically, there are three things that I can say to that. Maybe can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Is it clear on your side?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, Capricorn is the a sign of in terms of debilitating the physical, whereas the Aquarius, as the other sign of Saturn, is more debilitating mentally. And so the job of Capricorn is to wear down. The wear and tear energy becomes more, prominent in day-to-day life, and burnout and feeling more tired. Even though we have all this time to do the things we always said we do when we had time, we don't have the energy, the ready energy to do it so much, and we have to take more effort. I just want to mention two more things about this Brahma Yoga that Sonal and thanks Israel for elucidating so nicely about what these mean. But Brahma Yoga is, Jupiter, Saturn, as far as the visible planets are concerned, are at the border, and they are very important for channeling what is coming into the solar system. When we talk about the descent of the soul, that whole paradigm through the spheres, of the planets. So they really are the push and the pull, the constructive motivation and the destructive motivation for cycles to be set in place for the world going forward. And as Sonal mentioned, the seventh house for them is very important, but whether they are together or not, where their drishtis or their aspects coincide as a confluence is where that creative energy, whether it's manifesting something nefarious or something good, is going to manifest. And just to remind us, now that we talked about retrogrades, that from 2018 to 2022, the retrograde phases of these two planets are coinciding very close with one another. And whenever this happens, these are the two planets that are creating these structures and reconstruction. It's almost a reconstructive surgery that's happening. The one is tearing down, the other one's from that building up again and allowing new things to come in. So the Jupiter aspect, while old businesses, traditional businesses are, all these traditional practices are being worn down, there are people that are using the current environment to create new business ventures and new avenues of communication and all that. So that's the push and the pull of how they work. So from 2018 to 2022, their retrograde cycles are coincident within a month or two of each other, which is very important for the world. That this time frame, at least until 2023, 2025, you know, we are going to see this reconstruction surgery happening in the world. And my last point on this topic is just to remind us what happened the last time Saturn went through Sidereal Capricorn. We had the end of the Persian Gulf War. We had the end of sanctions against South Africa and the formal repealing of the apartheid laws in South Africa, which was a huge thing, you know, for that country and, you know, as a theme in the world. We had the dissolving of the USSR, formalizing, and the formal end of the Cold War and the breakup of Yugoslavia and all of that.
Yeah.
We had, quite interestingly, we had US ending trade sanctions against China. And that's a big topic now that is almost in reverse now in the world today. We also had the North American Free Trade Agreement that was signed, the NAFTA agreement, which again came up for review. We had the world's first user-friendly form of the internet user interface through the University of Minnesota being set up, and that laid the foundation for the whole structure of the internet. I mean, that's why we're here. I mean, back in the 90s, this was 1991 to 1993, 1994. And at that time, the big question in business was, is the internet going to stay? You know, and only until, you know, I think AIM was bought off by Warner, or I think Warner bought off AIM. That's only when people realized, oh, the internet's going to be the next big thing. You know, the internet's here to stay. It was still a question in people's minds at that time. So it was a completely new structure completely. And now for us, it's like, you know, we don't even think about it. We also had...
Listen,
in 1980, in the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Virgo, was the launch of the first PC by IBM called the
Acorn. Yeah. And the last point I want to make is that we also had the first cholera epidemic in 100 years that you know, infected 100,000 people and killed you know, 700 plus in South America. And the European Union was officially created following the Maastricht Treaty, and the EU is coming under stress right now as well as a structure.
So it's obvious that, you know, I think we've done like enough of reeling of what has happened. I think looking to the future now, we get a very fair idea that, yes, we are in for the long haul in terms of massive transformations on the level of our, you know, body and resources and institutions and things like that. But coming back to what is happening at the moment, which is a highly hot and topical issue, is it's interesting, Paul and John, that especially Paul, that you mentioned that about the Ghislaine episode, you know, that is really the whole sexual scandal of children and all kinds of, you know, thing. It made me think that if you take the sign Makar and, like, you know, Saturn, Jupiter, and have it as ascendant, the Badhak Rashi or the obstacle creator is Scorpio. So, you know, Scorpio is all about all stuff which is coming hidden underneath is going to come and bite us, you know, on a very collective level. And that is exactly what we are witnessing. I mean, what do you have to say? You begin with the Ghislaine episode. I just to be sure if everybody is okay with that. You know,
we're all gonna have a go. So yeah.
Okay, go on then.
Well, I'll make a start, and I'll have to.
Yeah.
If you just give me a second, because I'm working on two screens here.
You can share your screen, or I can.
How do I share my screen? Because I've just got the Sri Jyotish Star. Share screen.
Yes, thank you.
I think Sonal, you have to unmute. You have to unmute.
I think you have to. Yeah, I think you may have to do something there, Sonal. Because
I've done that.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
You can do it.
No,
Not yet.
you're done. Hello?
Ah, there we go.
It's coming.
Hello?
Something's happening.
There we go.
Okay.
Yes, beautiful.
Okay, so this is Ghislaine Maxwell. Apparently, her name isn't pronounced Ghislaine, but I'll carry on doing that because
Ghislaine.
Ghislaine, is it?
Ghislaine.
So we can see Taurus Lagna. Rohini is the nakshatra, which is interesting in itself. Lagna Lord Venus has gone to the 8th house, which is quite a problematic position. The moon is the 3rd lord in Cancer, and it's on the Rahu-Ketu axis, obviously aspected by Jupiter-Saturn. So we have this Jupiter-Saturn in Capricorn. This is why I was quite interested initially, but clearly she's the lady of the moment, shall we say. So the moon is like an eclipse moon. I think Sanjay has described it as an eclipse moon when we have moon Rahu.
Is this chart correct?
Well, it goes as per the time, 1520, and I think it's Rodent A. I would have to check that, but I think it's fairly correct. I think she was born a minute earlier. That's another matter. The Venus, the Lagna Lord, is cursed. So
Totally.
it's in the 8th house, and it's Mars and Sun, and that means that the discrimination ability, the intelligence, the decision-making ability is flawed. Now, she's quite a mysterious lady. If you look up Wikipedia, it can be very hard to find out what she's. There are some things known when she's been in the public eye, but she's quite a mysterious lady. But I think it's fairly safe ground to say that her discrimination is leaves a little bit to be desired. 8th Lord Jupiter's gone to the 9th house, which is really a disastrous situation for spirituality, and it means that the 5th house is NAicker, or the path to hell. Which since there are allegations, I won't go into the details, but there's we all know there's allegations of what she's been involved with. So the 5th house is also, shall we say, afflicted from the 12th Lord Mars. So the 10th from the 12th Lord is also Parashara, from a Parashara analysis, says is the path to hell. So really the 5th house, which is love affairs and the affairs of children, are things to be avoided for Miss Maxwell. Clearly, if we go by what's been said, these are the connections with Jeffrey Epstein, and the subsequent allegations have, effectively been very negative for her. The moon is the Viracia and the Atmakarika, so the moon is severe, and the moon is waning. So it's a Titi 4, which can indicate a sort of Machiavellian character. So the moon is afflicted and Venus is afflicted. The Venus is cursed, so that can indicate, and it's combust, so that indicates the anger of Shiva. That's some indiscretion. And because it's in the 8th house, and therefore associated with the 8th Lord, it indicates a debt that must be paid with tears. It's also associated with Agni planets, Mars and Sun, so that itself can indicate a sort of physical torture. So we all know she's been arrested recently and she's currently incarcerated. So there is quite a lot. I won't go into the Navamsha, but the Venus is afflicted in the Navamsha from 12th from Venus is Rahu, so it has a 2nd house, Drishti. We'll put it up. So this is the Navamsha, the D9 chart. There's the Venus, and it's afflicted by Rahu and Saturn. So this is a very severe affliction. It's associated with rape. Also, Mars is aspects in the 7th house. So this is a very severe position. I'm not going to go into any further details, but she's incarcerated, and it's not a very happy situation, I have to say. If we go back to
she's got in her Navam's chart, she's got a Graha Malika Yoga, which is you know, I guess that's why she's short to all this fame. It begins in the 4th house. Other way around. Yeah.
I mean, it depends. One way you can look at it both ways. One way is a more material way, and the other is a more spiritual way.
Yeah.
So if we go back, I was going to try and put the that's it. So that's for the people who like the northern chart, northern style. So I'm not going to say any more than that. I mean, there's clearly a lot going on here, and it's a very unhappy situation. And certainly the next 12 to 18 months, statements of the blinking obvious, really, but I think it's going to be a very difficult period for her.
What's in her 2nd house of D9 chart? Because that will often show her character, a person's character.
Well, the sun in Cancer. So,
sun isn't it often associated with, you know, abuse of sexual kinds? Is often...
Well, it can be if it's flawed. I mean, you know, the sun upholds Dharma.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, the sun itself is afflicted by Mars. You could say so, and it's in the 8th house. So there is definitely an affliction there. The moon is in a difficult position. It suggests financial loss due to government action.
Yeah.
Rahu and Saturn are the Bardika. So Saturn is the Bardika, and Rahu itself is Rahu. So that moon is severely afflicted, and I would suggest that this suggests foreign governments in this chart that are afflicting her. It could also push her towards illicit or unwise relationships, is the note I've taken. Clearly, a choice of partner has not been too wise in this life, but you know, there is Saturn is a large yoga planet. The Lagna Lord is conjunct the 5th Lord, which itself, which is Mercury, so Venus and Mercury. So that itself is a large yoga. She has the 12th Lord in the 8th house, which is a Vipreet yoga, both Dushtana. So you know, this can be quite positive in terms of fortune and so on. So, you know, she's probably had quite a good...
You're talking to me?
Would you mind muting? Oh. Sorry, carry on. I don't know who that is.
So she's probably had quite a good material life up to now. 12th Lord in the 8th house can indicate medium longevity. So
yeah.
I'll finish there and let others come in now. So I think I've spoken long enough. So I'll hand over to perhaps John.
So beyond the personal, I think it's very interesting if this is her D1 that the 1st and 9th houses are earth signs, but they're also the 1st, 5th, and 9th houses of Dharma, which is our path, our spiritual direction in life. And if we see her Lagna Lord, her Lagnatia, Venus, it's in a nakshatra called Mula, which is ruled by Ketu.
Yeah.
The south node of the moon. And I think it's very interesting if we look at Ketu where it is, it's in her 9th house, but it's actually in a portion of the chart. It's called the Kaulika, which is the first 5 degrees, well, it's the last 5 degrees, but Ketu is moving in reverse. So effectively it's in the first 5 degrees, and that's first Kaulika is connected with the Ajna chakra, the 3rd eye. And, you know, in the teaching, Ketu is where we're headless. in our lives where we lose our head.
Yeah.
You know, it's Ganesha, connected to Ganesha.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the moment in transit, K2 is actually almost conjuncting her natal Venus. So what I'm seeing there is this is like, you know, being put on her dharmic path, wherever it is, whether she's guilty or not guilty, that's for the courts to decide. But we're certainly seeing a chart here where this person is being forced onto their dharmic path and being asked to account for whatever choices they have made in their life that may have taken them off that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, John.
I think it's also very interesting, if I may add, and we don't have to look at the charts, but the two main other players in this drama, planetary drama at the moment, Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew, who's with us still. If we look at Prince Andrew's D1 chart, we can see that Saturn and Jupiter are actually in Sagittarius in his D1, conjunct.
So that's all plugging into the sign Sagittarius. And, you know, do you think that whole Saturn in Sagittarius with South Node in Sagittarius and Jupiter, all three of them have triggered this whole episode in the past 2 years? And now we are seeing a fallout of that. Yeah. So it's pretty diabolical, that whole, I think that also started this whole virus thing as well in Sagittarius.
Okay, too.
So yeah. So Alex and Israel, anything to add?
Well, in regards to her chart, I haven't actually analyzed it in the Vedic, from the Vedic yet.
That's fine. You can just make a thing of.
But from the Western,
yeah,
I do have a chart, and I've looked at it, and I noticed she's got a very she's having a Saturn return anyway, which is quite a crucial time. And in the Western chart, her Saturn is actually in the 8th house. It rules the 8th house, of course, because she's got Saturn in Capricorn. And the 8th house is heavily being triggered. One of the predictive techniques that I use, which is known as profections. She's actually in an 11th house profection, but the Lord of her 11th house in the Western chart is also in the 8th. Fair enough. The Lord of her 11th house is Mars, and Mars is also exalted in Capricorn. He's actually at 0 degrees. This is the Western, of course. But so it heavily puts a lot of pressure on that 8th house. And the 8th house, we know it's a very difficult house. It's a house that can bring crisis. Very often, even in Western astrology, it's often the house that's connected with secrets, and even in Jyotish and Parashar as well, they make it clear it's the house of hidden issues, and even it's linked with the occult, things like that. Yeah. So we know that it's quite interesting that all of this stuff is now coming up. So I feel that she's got a very, very difficult year ahead, and it probably will continue even because her birthday is going to be coming up on Christmas Day. She's born on Christmas Day. She's going to be going by perfection. She's going to be going into a 12th house, and something tells me the 12th house rules prisons and the ashrams and things of that nature. So her it's very likely that her next ashram is going to be a prison. And she may well be on her way, because I was very surprised actually that I'm sure she's worth quite a bit of money, and for her they wouldn't even give her bail, which I found quite surprising. I thought someone of her status would have at least got bail, but she's been denied bail. They could have taken her passport if they thought she was at flight risk or something, but they still denied bail. So it's not looking good for her at this precise time. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
If we, I don't know if people are familiar with the BCP techniques of progression.
Right.
1 year per sign. It's taught by the that's taught by the Saptarishi people that I do courses with, and she's currently in the 11th house Pisces. Well, the 11th house. This is progressing from the Lagna.
Right.
So she's in that 50. She's 58. She's in the 59th year running, which takes it to Pisces, which is the 11th house of Danda or punishment.
Right.
The 11th house is 6 from the 6, so it's a house of punishment. Next year, she's in it progresses to the 12th house, which is, as you say, the house of, liberation in one way, incarceration, hospitals, asylums, and prisons, as you point out. So it's not looking too positive for her. I would also say that I mentioned the Devamsha, if we look at the 9th house, the D9, we have Moon in Sidereal Capricorn. So Saturn transiting Capricorn would not be good for her health.
No, and it's also, so Saturn is transiting for the next till 2022 because Moon is also her Atmakaraka, and often that is actually the real Sade Sati she's in, so it's bodes really bad.
Yes, well.
Yeah. Alex, any inputs?
Alex there? She hasn't wandered off, has she?
Alex, why you muted? Oh, 1 second. Unmute. Yeah. Hello?
Am I unmuted?
Yes. I don't know how that happened, but carry on. Yes.
No, I muted myself because...
okay.
Can I just double check on the time? Are we at 3:20 p.m.?
Yes.
With the time. Okay, great. So I have, it's I can't disagree with what you guys are saying, because even the tropical system, which I use, I agree. She's got this all these negative things that are happening. Now I'm looking. She's got Jupiter on her midheaven in Aquarius in the tropical zodiac. Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so
that's correct.
Jupiter is not the great friend he often is credited for. He can also bring all sorts of awkward and difficult things, and pulling out secrets, where we try to keep things hidden. So, I think that when Jupiter hits that degree, I think, we're going to hear more of the story. And, the astrological world is also hit with a scandal. There's a lot of Me Too going on in the astrological world. So I think there's a lot of things that are coming out that we need to deal with. And so when we look at a small, we think about individual.
Yeah.
There are also bigger things in the collective.
Oh, yeah. I mean, on the collective. Yes, totally. And Saturn is institutions and communities as well, to a large extent, because it's the masses. Saturn is like about the common labor man, the law. Yeah, and that too. And so it's inevitable that everything will be churned, So yeah.
The last time that I just wanted to interject this. Last time that we had the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at this particular degree was during the Crusades, the Third Crusade.
Oh, wow.
And this crusade, the Third Crusade, is important because what happened was it pulled in the internationals. Richard the Lionheart got involved, France got involved, Italy got involved in these crusades, and of course it's centered on Jerusalem. So I say all eyes on our religions as well. What's going on in India, for example, and the constant.
And we've also been seeing the cathedrals burning. We've seen that also happen in
Yes.
France.
Well, there was one yesterday,
Again,
wasn't there, in Nantes and Notre Dame.
Yes.
Well,
Now,
this churches burn every day in France at the moment.
yeah. Now, can we switch to the country? You know, let's begin with the UK, and I'm sure all of you have something to say, and then we'll end with Nathan's South Africa, because that's all we'll have time for. We are anyway running short, but it's fine. It's quite exciting. So, Paul, can I get you to do the Chaitra Shukla Pratipad for the UK? Thank you very much. Now, for those who don't know, especially the Western thing, it's the Vedic equivalent of an ingress chart for the new year. You know how you would do the new year, but this is to do with kind of a progressed one, because charts which are, do you add 144 years? Yes, Paul?
We would if this is the Chaitra Shukla, which represents the conjunction of moon and sun in Pisces.
Okay, so we are not doing the Chaitra Shukla for the year 2020.
For the country charts, you do the
Yeah.
Yes, you can look at the 1801 chart, which has a Virgo Lagna, and progress it 144 years, which takes us to 1945. So this is the standard.
Okay, so let's
thing. But this is the annual chart for, you do it for each capital of a particular country. So obviously for London, and the moon and the sun were together on the 24th of March this year. So it's around about the time of the spring solstice. So you can see the degrees, 10 degrees, 4 minutes. So it's the first titty right at the start. So this is done for all countries. Now, this is for London, but in fact, the chart's similar. The planets are in the same signs all around the world, so it's just the houses that change. So for the UK, and indeed for, I think, the whole of Europe, the first house is Gemini.
But I think it differs from the Western, because we take it, the Chaitra Shukla, on the new year starting at I think 0 degrees Aries, right? When the sun ingresses.
That can be done as well.
Yeah.
And that can be quite useful for looking at the politics of a country.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different to that. So just to give you a background for people who are Western, yeah.
If we were spending all day, we would look at that as well. Sure, the fact we've only got a couple of minutes. So again, this has been discussed previously by people, so it may well be familiar to a lot of people by now. I think it's certainly been discussed in Jyotish Digest, and I think it's been discussed in the Barber webinar as well with Gordon. So, so we have Gemini. Now we can see we have a Kalsarpa Yoga. So all the planets are, caught between this Rahu Ketu karmic axis. So it's not a particularly auspicious situation to begin with, and it sort of, when I see this politically, I think about Brexit, that the UK has broken away from the rest of Europe. So it indicates quite obviously there's a split in the chart there. Again, it is a garland yoga, so there's a line of planets there forming this garland. So in this case, it starts for the UK and for Europe in the 7th house, which relates to relationships, but relationships with other countries. So it seems to me to be indicating certainly a split with other countries. And it ends, you could say it ends with Venus and in Aries, and that's quite influential to look at the last planet. So where is the garland? Where's the yoga going? The Malika Graha yoga? Well, it's going towards Venus, which represents private enterprise in an Agni Tattva sign, in the fire sign, Aries. So it suggests that a lot of businesses are going to suffer, which is going back to what I said earlier. This is 3 months into this now, more or less. So this is what's actually happened. So it's no great surprise. We have the Saturn and Mars conjunction here. So this is the Yama Yoga. which indicates, well, death in its broadest sense. Clearly, there has been, and in the 8th house, I mean, the UK did suffer supposedly quite badly with the pandemic. We've had, a high fatality rate if you go by this year government statistics, and I won't say anything about that, but government statistics. But anyhow, there has been does appear to have been a high fatality rate. But its broadest sense, again, it can indicate change. And Yama yogas also represent restraint, and there is this feeling of restraint at the moment. We've all been in this lockdown, which is beginning to ease slowly. So the planets are not very happy being in a Kal Sap. It's like being in the mouth of the serpents, which is not a nice place to be. We have this Yama yoga, which is characteristic of, it's not an auspicious yoga. I think the saving grace for Europe is that the Lagna Lord Mercury is in the 9th house, and the 9th Lord Rahu is in the 1st house.
So there's
a Parivartana yoga, and to me, this is the saving grace. We know there's going to be an economic recession, stroke depression. The economy is going to be hit. And it's the same if we look at the American Chaitra Shukla, then the Lagna is here in Capricorn, which means that the 2nd house Aquarius is going to be hit. So the economy in America is going to be very badly hit. If you go by the natal or the birth charts of America, it's normally, the Lagna is normally taken to be Sagittarius. So this Yama is again in the 2nd house in the natal chart of the United States, if we take James Keller chart. So for the UK, then I'm fairly optimistic that it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a difficult year, but I think because of the Parivartana yoga, then I think there is some saving grace. But nevertheless, private business is going to be quite seriously affected. The Sun, which is the 3rd Lord of Enterprises in Digbala strength, so that's quite positive in my opinion. So there are saving graces. People have looked at China. For China, the Lagna is here in Leo. So the moon is in the 8th house in Mauna Karikasthana, which is not a happy position. And the overall chart for China does indicate economic woes, opposition and conflict abroad. And clearly other countries are now looking at China in a different light from what they may have seen a few years ago. And of course, we do have the conflict on the Indian border, which is flared up once again. So that's what I'm going to say for several countries, but it's a picture that's not particularly happy. But I think for the UK and for Europe, because of the Gemini Lagna, that I'm fairly confident we'll get through. We'll get through it, and it will be fairly positive at the end.
I think it's notable, actually, that if we vector in the Jupiter-Saturn transit into this chart here, that it's happening in Capricorn, where the Chaitra Shukla has a Yama yoga of Mars and Saturn, and Yama being the god of death. Perhaps that's Brexit in the context of what's happening in European relationships.
Well, I mean, I think the whole chart to me just says, the split, which, it took place, formally took place in the end of January. But of course, we are still in this transition period, so we haven't actually, the consequences are pretty minimal at the moment. The actual split, the real split, is meant to be at the end of, 31st of December.
Yeah.
So 1st of January 2021 is, when Brexit will materialise. But legally, it has taken place, and we've gone past the point of no return. But we're still in this no man's land of the transition period at the moment. So things are changing, but we have instead of being part way in and part way out, we're now part way out and part way in. So
there's also Jupiter in zero Digbal, in zero strength, in the 7th house.
Yes, it's Yeah, 29 degrees.
Yeah, and it's the results will be given by the moon in the 10th house. So, and that's like a whole Amavasya happening there. Well, most Chaitra Shukla would be Amavasya because that's when it happens. But still, the moon in the 10th house is again opposite to its Digbala, So I think, and the planets which are opposite to its strength houses, or rather opposite to the Digbala or zero Digbala, they often give you a lot of suffering, So I think it's clear as a bell. Maybe our saving grace will be that Surya in the 10th house.
Well, it's the third house of enterprise, and it also represents the government. Interestingly, Jupiter Ketu, of course, should be good for Jaimini astrology. So if anyone wants to start Jaimini this year, I think it's in the Jaimini Ketu conjunction. So everybody start looking at the
for that matter, any spiritual sort of communities, because Jupiter Ketu is kind of a very specific, on a broader spectrum, it's a whole spiritual communities with a lineage associated with
lineage.
So any spiritual lineage, it's the time for it. So guys, anyone?
Thank you, Sonal, for doing this, because you're creating a lineage here, hopefully today.
Yeah, absolutely. This is fun. So anyone else wants to make some kind of a comment, even if it's Western astrological perspective? UK's future for the year?
The UK has got, there is, looking at it from the Western again, and I'm looking at the chart of the 1066 chart, William the Conqueror, which I think is a very crucial chart for the UK.
But before my time, this.
Yeah, well,
just
about.
Is that the same as we use, Paul, the UK chart? Because we typically use the progress chart of the UK. We progress it to 144 years, but that is the
original that they progress, the Guruji progresses the 1801 chart. UK.
Right. So Israel, you're not using the 1801 chart, are you?
No. I do look at the 1801 chart, but I heavily use the 1066 chart. I do use both charts. I think both of them do show very interesting perspective. You still kind of get the same story, just in a different way. So I do use both charts. But I do feel with the 1066, I think it's quite interesting. I've noticed when I've done research in the past, that I've noticed even just with transits to the 1066 chart, when planets hit when they make contact with the natal chart of the 1066 chart, I do see significant changes. And in the 1066, the sun is in Capricorn in the Western chart. Just to let you know, that's what I'm using. The sun is in Capricorn, Mercury is in Capricorn, and Venus is in Capricorn. Now, when we're looking at the chart of a country on a mundane level, Venus does represent the finances. And as a matter of fact, even in the 1066 chart, Venus is actually the ruler of the second house, which is also the wealth and the money and the resources of the country. And she's right at the end. She's at 29 degrees of Capricorn in the Western chart. The sun is at 10, Mercury is at 16. So we know that they are all going to be affected by Pluto's already gone over it. It's gone over the sun and Mercury, but it's going to come to that Venus. Jupiter, Saturn, they're all going to hit that Venus, at some point, before the end of the year. So I feel that UK's economy is going to be hit quite hugely. And I'm just hoping that there isn't, because they're projecting that there could be a second wave of the corona. And I strongly feel that with the UK's economy, it's going to just be hit tremendous. You know, and we're not fully going to see the effects of that until like the end of this year, beginning of next year. That's when we're going to realize that, oh, wow, like this is actually even more bigger and more devastating than we, you know, I know the governments are saying, oh yeah, you know, everybody, Boris Johnson saying everybody will be, you know, everything will be back to normal by Christmas and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, dream on, you know, you know.
They are talking about it being a depression, not just a recession.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And we know what, okay, fair enough with the Sati with Saturn, you know, with the moon, we know can be depressing, but Saturn on the Venus can also be quite depressive and quite heavy also as well.
Yeah, especially on the private sector.
Yes, exactly. You know, so I strongly feel like we you know, there's probably still a heavier wave to come financially. I mean, we've heard about these big companies. I mean, the losses that they're taking are colossal, literally. I mean, you're talking billion-pound dollar industries folding overnight. It's quite, you know, quite scary. It's quite frightening, actually. But watch this space, and I do feel that when that Saturn does go over, you know, and Jupiter goes over that Venus, towards the end of the year, we're really going to see definitely a huge and a big shake-up for sure.
And I think we're going to have a big shake-up with the royal family as well. You mentioned a 1066 chart. It's really easy to follow the royal family with Algol all the way through the charts. And so there was 3 kings that year.
So Algol, the fixed star Algol is at like what, 20 now at 27 Taurus?
26 Taurus, so 3 degrees. But you know, one thing I learned about the nakshatras is, you know, it doesn't make sense to say Algol's in Taurus. It only makes sense to say that Algol's in Kritika, right? in Kritika. So yeah, just want to say that there was 3 kings on the throne in that year, 1066. So there were 3 kings on the throne. 1457, I think that's the year, with Richard III and all that. And then there were 3 kings on the throne in 1936. And Uranus, I know you guys aren't fans of Uranus, so sorry, just to say that
I'm a fan of Uranus.
that Uranus will be at the same degree it was during the abdication crisis of 1936. So I think we could be looking at another year of 3 monarchs on the throne.
Alex, you wrote an article on this. Hey, where was it published? You wrote quite a long article on this.
That was an OPA. But it's also my website now.
So so the 3 kings you're referring to, is that pertaining to the UK?
Yes. I'll talk about the monarchs of the UK.
So when you say so you mean they will be in trouble? We've already got one of them in trouble.
Well, yeah.
Prince Andrew.
Well, and Harry too, you know, was in trouble too.
He's
Meghan and
kind of scooting off,
So you know, they're you know, maybe this is all part of it, but I am saying that in these particular years there were 3 British monarchs on the throne, and I think 2020, 21 will be another year where Prince Charles is in his mid-70s, and Camilla is not in great health. She's a lifelong smoker and.
Yeah, I did.
Not popular in the UK.
Yeah, I did say that when the Saturn, Jupiter in Makar, his health will be affected. I think I wrote for the Lodge Weekly. But Paul, would you have Prince Charles's chart by any chance?
Yeah, constitutionally, if the Queen abdicates or whatever, then Charles has to take over. I mean, he can't just. Constitutionally, it would be very serious, I think, if he didn't do it. So how long is he would
Will we have time to get to South Africa?
Yeah, we will. 5 minutes. Let's finish this. And yeah, Alex, I think you would well be right. he does have this conjunction happening in the 7th house, aspecting his moon and Rahu, that configuration. And his Arud also is heavily afflicted, the Arud Lagna.
Let me put the Arud.
And just to say to anybody who doesn't understand, I'm not wishing bad on Prince Charles.
Oh, don't worry. No, totally. It's a
Yeah.
You don't have to even say that.
Well, I think you do sometimes when you talk about things like
And
this.
it is interesting bringing in the royal family because if you follow the Jupiter-Saturn cycles, at the beginning of in 1900 to 1905, you had the empire of the British Empire, had its last gasp with the death of a queen at the time. Absolutely. And now you're also having a queen that's about to kick it. Soon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Guruji often says, like, his Arud Lagna is in Libra, and literally the Saturn and Jupiter, a debilitated Jupiter, is going to hammer, that Saturn is really going to hammer that Arud. So essentially, he will have to either transform the way he looks, everybody perceives him, or, there has to be some significant thing happening for him.
If he looks any more like Saturn, I'm not sure where he will be.
Well, as I say, I think constitutionally he has to take over. I mean,
I think he will. How long will he last? Is
well, that's another matter. I mean, it's. I mean, the sun is debilitated.
Maybe we should have a panel on the royal family.
And unaspected, is it not unaspected as well?
Yes, it's not. No, it's aspected by Saturn for sure. Saturn in Leo is having an aspect on Sun, Mercury, Ketu. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's Saturn, and it's on the Rahu Ketu axis, of course.
Yeah, Graha. Yeah, totally. So
the
third as Graha Drishti of Shani is about the mind.
It's about
it's a mental taxing, mental
desire.
So I mean, it's not the best chart for success,
especially from
Biden. But anyhow, time will tell. I mean, clearly some things have to change very shortly because Philip's 99 and Her Majesty's 94. So.
And that Saturn is even natally, that Mercury is quite cursed. It's kind of the Ketu with the Ketu on one side, the Surya on the other, and Saturn's full drishti. Graha as well as Rashi.
That's Rashi.
Yeah, so super afflicted that Mercury. So and in Marana. So.
Yeah, and the moon's getting it as well, the Rashi Drishti.
Yeah. So, interesting. Alex, thank you for that, for, kind of flagging about his health. I had forgotten about his chart and his influence on it. So, okay. So now we shall just wrap up with Nathan, your South Africa thing.
Yeah, you've got it there, have you?
Let me.
Okay, I can share my screen. I've got it up also.
Yeah, why don't you? Shall I be?
Someone needs to stop sharing.
I'm pressing the stop share red button, but nothing's happening.
Yeah, sometimes it's a bit.
Yeah, just give it a second.
Yeah,
it's a bit slow.
If you have it, Sonal, it might be helpful if you share it because I'm just concerned about loading the Indian internet connection.
Okay, one sec.
My screen says your screen sharing is paused, so I don't know what you can see.
Oh, if it is paused, then it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, one sec.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Is that Nathan? Have you put it up?
No, that was.
That's Israel's.
That was me. So now, so hold on a minute. Let me.
Stop share.
Stop share or I want to allow. Let me.
That's okay. Sonal is going to share. I've sent her my 3 slides. So
okay, because I was going to make it so that you can have it. So okay.
If I was in a place with better internet here, sure.
Stop sharing.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, I'm sharing it. I'm getting hold of.
So if you give it to now, Nathan, then yeah.
No, I've got his document, so he can.
Yeah, so Sonal's going to.
Yeah, sorry. Let me just exit from the Sri Jyoti, minimize it. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if anyone in the participants is from South Africa, but they will instantly recognize what I'm talking about. And for those of you who don't know what's happening in South Africa, I guess you will learn something about some of the countries in the world. But on the overall, it's essentially the same as everywhere else. You know, the economy is going to be hit, and everyone's trying to deal with that. Okay, so those aspects are going to be common. But there are peculiar things that are being seeded in the country right now.
Okay, one sec. Where is it gone? Okay, share screen. Sorry, guys. I think it's a little bit slow here for me.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. Share. And I'm going to exit through this. Oh, it doesn't allow me to do that. What is...
I can see something.
Yeah, except that it's...
What's that?
If you...
Nathan, just carry on sharing.
Okay, let me
For some reason, I can't do it.
It says the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
So you, yeah, maybe you need to end your
screen sharing, Sonal, but you have ended it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you start it again and then.
Okay, here, let me see this. Let's give it a go.
Right, there we go.
Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Sorry.
Okay,
okay, there we go. Here you go.
Okay, it's just huge, isn't it? Oh, there we go. It's a normal size.
Yeah.
Okay, can you just make it a bit? Oh, okay. I guess that's fine. Yeah. So, can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So, let me just see here. So, right, this is the first slide. So this is because South Africa, there's a lot of debate about the chart of the country, and I don't want to get involved with all of that. I just use the chart of the swearing in of the current president and take it as valid for 5 years, which is the term of the president. Because for the most part, the voting population in South Africa is pretty much uninformed about political processes generally. They're not so clued up into it as the US or the UK are. So for the most part, it's very much driven by the executive. So here is that chart in May 2019, and it is Aquarius rising. So the main focus is going to be Saturn and Uranus. I'm doing Western astrology because I want to mix it up a bit, and also because it's also valid as a system. So I'm just going to go very quickly because of time. So yes. Saturn and Uranus as the lords of Aquarius are going to be the focus. And here you see, and I'm using the southern tropical zodiac because we are using a seasonal zodiac. So Saturn here is in Cancer, debility in detriment in the 6th house with Pluto. And that is obviously the emphasis on the health sector and also the labor unions. The labor actions are also going to be increasing. And in South Africa right now, there's been a big conversation about land appropriation with or without compensation. And there's also been a lot of farm killings that has been perpetrated for a while. And I think all of those issues coming together, coming to a head is going to be happening in this term. The other planet with affinity to Uranus, to Aquarius is Uranus. And that is up, I don't know, if you can point to it with your pointer because I can't do it. Uranus up there in Scorpio. And the government, ever since Uranus went to Scorpio, the government has been trying to reach into people's pension funds and manipulate insurance schemes to extract more money. And that's a very scorpionic theme because it's the natural 8th house. And it also being Uranus connected to Mars, that is also the failings of the current energy sector. Electricity, South Africa is basically, the electricity grid is highly inefficient and people have very frequent blackouts for many hours of the day. And that doesn't look to be resolved anytime soon. So that is also, so these are the two main focuses for this term. And if I look at the moon as a general significator of the people, because they receive the light of the sun, who are the leaders, and the moon is the 6th house ruler, and it's in the 7th house. So it's bringing up the health issues. And because of those health issues in the 6th house, the government's going to have to, they're going to make new deals with foreign countries. The 7th house shows trade and business deals being done with other countries. And that moon is having an applying aspect to Jupiter, and Jupiter is the 11th house ruler of the treasury, and it is in detriment, and it is retrograde. So those trade deals, which they are wanting to improve the economy and stimulus the economy, is highly speculative, being in the 5th house, Jupiter, and questionable, and also likely to backfire because of the retrograde nature of the detriment Jupiter. And if you look at the president himself, the 10th Lord, the 10th house being Scorpio, the 10th house being an exalted Mars, so he himself is enjoying the power, but the government is trying very hard to uplift the economy, being in the 11th house. Next slide. Slide number 2. Is it up?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the most recent ingress, the Capricorn ingress into southern tropical Capricorn that happened very recently. And this is valid for this quarter until end of December. So here we have Virgo rising, which is the 8th house of the government chart from before. So which is further highlighting the real implication of those debts, insurance fraud, pension fraud, all of that is actually going on. There's been, meetings with the previous president's sons with the insurance scheme providers to sort of at gunpoint to give them access to these funds and things. So it really is on that level with the Mars rising there. Mars with Neptune, Mars as the 8th Lord on the ascendant is further confirming the 8th house themes that we've been seeing throughout. With the Neptune association, that is the confusion, that is the lack of knowledge on the public side, where not many people know what is going on, really, it's all behind the scenes. The communication, because Mars was the 3rd house, is also very vague and also ill-affected. Yeah. This is mirrored by the Gemini South Node on the 10th house, again, communication problems. This is the last slide here, the Saturn. This is just the bi-wheel. And we have Saturn going to a southern tropical Leo, which is going to show the rise of opposition to the current government in the next couple of years. And just quickly, Uranus is also transiting to the 10th house of the chart, and that will happen in 2022, 2023, and that is going to be a major shift. So what is being laid down right now, and that's the end of the slide, Sonal, what is being laid down right now in a nutshell is basically the change, the end of the ANC as a ruling government party in South Africa since independence. They've lost the glow of the freedom fighters that they enjoyed. And we're going to see the rise of a radical conservative wing as opposition.
Wow, amazing.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think next time we should probably have a kind of 1 minute, get them actually to see both perspectives on this, Nathan, because this has been actually a very illuminating. I don't know much about the.
Yeah, I mean, I have the Chaitra Shukla and all that.
Yeah.
I do the Vedic, but I just chose to use the Western one.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before I go, I'm just going to see some of the questions. You can take it to the Telegram group. If you have any questions, please feel free to post. And I have a little bit of an announcement to make regarding Paul's. Paul runs the Leeds. He's the president of the
Theosophical Society.
And you also are running the Leeds Vedic Astrological Conference every year, right?
Yeah.
And this year it's in October. So if anybody is interested, we could we are waiting and watching, aren't we? Whether it'll be in person or online. So
yes, obviously we started it 2 years ago, so we've a track record, and last year was certainly very successful. And I'm pleased to announce that Sonal will be, if we run ahead in person, that Sonal will be gracing us in Leeds with her presence.
Oh, bless you.
So
yes.
The theme in Israel spoke 2 years ago, of course.
Yes.
So when is that happening, Paul? When is it happening?
2nd of October, which is a Friday.
Yeah, please do send an insert for the Jyotish magazine.
And
we'll
so
include that in the...
Visti Larson will be speaking, Sonal, Gordon Brennan, and Vijaya Subramanian. So so they're all accomplished. I might even speak myself.
Yes.
And
so it's also accomplished. So yes.
It's a good, because at conferences, it's nice to interact with people. But if we don't do that, then we'll probably do something online. So that's keep it good. And the theme is career. So aspects of career. So we'll be talking about the Matrikarika, of course, and other people who were speaking and looking at the D10 chart and so on. So it's a good experience, and we have a bit of a laugh as well. So it's
absolutely. And I think we are all missing the interaction at the moment.
And hopefully that restaurant will be back up and running.
Yeah, exactly. In-person interaction,
Yes, we have a very good dinner.
Yeah, I've also got my eyes on Ireland.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, so anyway, thank you very much, Alex, Israel, Nathan. Thank you very much, John and Paul. So, and hopefully, Om Namah Shivaya, we shall, see you next month. We'll plan something a little bit. This was our first. So obviously, I'm kind of still grappling with how seamlessly it can work. So please, pardon some of the faux pas. But hopefully we will improvise and make it better and better.
What's our talk next this coming weekend, Sonal? Is it Sam JP?
Yes, for the following week, next Sunday, it's Sam JP who's coming. So you guys are welcome.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Have fun.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Om Namah Shivaya.